Good evening and welcome to the 602nd meeting of the City of Laurel Planning Commission. This meeting is being conducted this evening via Zoom. All of the agenda and all materials have been available on cityoflaurel.org. Ms. Quillen, if you would please call the roll.
Councilmember Sidnor, Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Kish,
Here.
Mr. Welford,
Here.
Mr. Grant, Chairwoman Bettman.
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2, approval of the minutes from the September 12th, 2023 meeting. We have all received these via email and have had a chance to review. Are there any questions for staff? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, this is Rick Wilson. I move to approve the minutes and want to commend the staff on another great job doing those. Thank you.
I'll second that, Madam Chairman. John Kish.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson and Mr. Kish. Ms. Quillen, if you would please call the roll.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Kish,
Yes.
Mr. Welford,
Yes.
Chairwoman Bettman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Before I move to agenda item 3, I apologize this evening. I don't have the list of participants that are on. Before I start this, Mr. Lover, Ms. Quillen, can you tell me if the applicant and all are on the call?
The applicants for both the two applications are both on and or have.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure number 3 was on before we started, or I was going to move it. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 3, variance application number 949-7306, Contee Road, filed by Islamic Community Center for recommendation to the Board of Appeals. We'll now hear the staff report.
Good evening, Madam Chair and fellow board members. This is Monte Burrow, Deputy Director of Economic and Community Development. Variance application number 949 was filed on August 21st, 2023 by Islamic Community Center of Laurel, Incorporated, seeking approval to increase fence height in the required front yard setback at 7306 Contee Road, Laurel, Maryland, 20707. The applicant will be installing a fence around the entire property. Under date of September 9th, 2023, the applicant and a cover letter and a site plan asking for comments were sent to the state and local agency, including the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department. Any comments received are stated in the technical staff report. It is recommended that the Planning Commission recommend approval of variance number 949. The City of Laurel Board of Appeals with the following condition. The applicant shall obtain an applicable City of Laurel permit. The applicant shall install a Knox box for emergency personnel for access. The applicant shall install a gate wide enough to fit large emergency and trash apparatus. The applicant shall comply with all state, federal, and local laws and regulations for protection of the use of the property. The file contains a certificate of publication verifying that this application and public hearing will be advertised in the October 19, 2022 issue of the Prince George Post. The file contains an affidavit signed by the applicant attesting that a zoning sign has been placed on the subject property, has remained and shall remain until the decision is reached by the boards of appeal. That concludes the reading of the file, Madam Chair. The applicant should be on the call for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly go through the commissioners to see if there are any questions of staff before moving on to the applicant. Mr. Kish?
I have none at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Welford?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Wilson?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 3 people signed up. Abdullah Hijazi, Mohammed Sohail Chaudhry, and Syed Hassan. If whoever would like to go first, if you would please state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Madam Chair and members of the board, Abdullah Hijazi here of Hijazi, Zessel, and Carroll in Bowie, Maryland, and I'm here on behalf of ICCL. ICCL has a variance application for this perimeter fence. This fence was actually recommended in a April 5, 2021 report, security assessment report prepared by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The report also had other security improvements to be made. ICCL is proceeding with this as a first step because of their limited budget. We meet the variance request not because of the shape of this property is peculiar, but just because of the extraordinary circumstances surrounding the property, being that the property was recommended by Department of Homeland Security, being that it is a mosque and has had trespassing in the past, and other mosques in the area have had trespassing and attacks in the past. So that's why it was recommended to have increased perimeter security. For this reason, we were seeking this variance application. We have no problems with any of the recommendations of staff. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Hassan, who is here on behalf of ICCL, from ICCL, to provide more details.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Hassan. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and Board. My name is Syed Hassan. I am the chairman of the Islamic Community Center of Laurel. The address there is 7306 Contee Road, Laurel, Maryland, 20707. Just to start off, our fence and gates that are proposed will be primarily along the front of the property only, with just a few yards of fencing cornering each side. And I do want to mention that the fence and gates will be entirely see-through, so they shouldn't be an eyesore in any way to those who are driving by. It will consist of 4 electronic programmable gates that will be automatically opened prior to every service or program at the center, and 1 pedestrian access gate with sidewalk wheelchair access to our parking lot. In the report, Mr. Hijazi referenced, the Department of Homeland Security highly advised that we have a perimeter fence to, in quote, protect against trespassing, provide access control by channeling individuals through authorized access points, in order to protect against unauthorized entry, end quote. And most of the incidents we've had in the past at our center have been individuals coming in through the access points because there has been no fence or no gate. And we are seeking, a gate that is 6 foot high, because a gate that is 3.5 foot and fences that are 3.5 feet high are just easy for people to jump right over. So we want to incorporate what the Department of Homeland Security has recommended to us. In our communications with them, they also referenced other mosques in the area in PG County that have fences and the security that those fences provide. And all of those mosques have fences that are 6 feet high or even higher. We have a neighbor across the street at an auto lot that has a fence that is 6 foot high, which is not see-through, with several feet of additional barbed wire above for additional security. As mentioned, our fence will be 6 feet high and completely see-through. And then on the left side, we're facing the property of ICCL. We have the future townhomes coming with RT zoning. And on the right side, we have our neighbor, Mr. Sahil Chaudhry, who has mentioned he has no issue with this fence, and it is my understanding that he will be speaking today as well. And lastly, I do want to mention that Mr. Monteboro did provide me with the feedback that was received, and we will be installing a Knox box, and we will have gates that are more than wide enough for fire trucks to come in and swing around. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And also signed up to speak, Mr. Mohammed Sahil Chaudhry.
I'm Mohammed Sahil Chaudhry. I'm one of the immediate neighbors of Islamic Community Center of Laurel ICCL. I reside at the house that's right next to ICCL's property, that's located at 7410 Contee Road in Laurel. And as it was stated earlier on the call, and as I just stated, that my house is directly attached to ICCL's property, and I've been living over here for over a decade. I personally, we as a family have no issues whatsoever with the proposed installation of the fence, and that's one of the primary reason why I'm here.
Thank you very much. I do not have anyone else signed up to speak. Is there anyone else on the call wishing to speak? This is a request for variance, so a public hearing is not a requirement. Hearing none, I would like to see if there are any questions for the applicant, Mr. Wilson,
No, thank you.
Mr. Welford,
No, thank you.
Mr. Kish.
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Burrow, for a very clear presentation. And thank you to the applicant for letting us know that everything, the recommendations in the technical staff report are acceptable to you as the applicant. If there are no further questions, I will entertain a motion on this agenda item.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to recommend approval of variance number 948 to the City of Laurel Board of Appeals with the following conditions. The applicant shall obtain all applicable City of Laurel permits. The applicant shall install a Knox box for emergency personnel to access. The applicant shall install a gate wide enough to fit large emergency and trash apparatus. The applicant shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations for protection of the use of the property. That is my motion.
I'll
Do
second.
I have, I'm sorry, was that Mr. Wilson?
Yep, I'm sorry.
Ms. Quillen, before you call the roll, just a point of clarification for the record. Mr. Welford stated variance application number 948. On my agenda, it shows 949. Can you clarify?
It should be 949.
Okay, so
Mine
noted.
is 948.
So noted for the record. Ms. Quillen, if you would please call the roll.
Mr. Welford,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Kish,
Yes.
Chairwoman Bettman,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4, special exception application number 950, 14251 and 14275 Park Center Drive, filed by Kevin McNulty, Greater Laurel Professional Park LLC, for recommendation to the Board of Appeals. We'll first start with the staff report.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commission members. This is Emily Klein-Gibson with ECD presenting the staff report. The applicant is seeking special exception with preliminary site plan approval to construct 82 townhomes on 2 currently vacant lots that total 8.2 acres. The lots are located in the CVAC, or Commercial Village Activity Center zone, and are surrounded by the PUDE, or the Planned Unit Development Existing Zone, to the north and east. The Unified Land Development Code states that dwellings which require special exception approval are subject to the regulations of the adjacent residential zone. However, the applicant states that the regulations of the PUDE zone do not apply to their proposal, since the proposed townhomes are not part of the original development plans of the PUDE zone, and since that zone consists solely of single-family units. The applicant has drafted their own set of yard and lot coverage regulations as shown in the table on page 4 of the staff report. Some of the proposed regulations, such as minimum lot widths ranging from 16 to 21 feet, minimum front yard depths ranging from 10 to 18 feet, minimum rear yard depth ranging from 18 to 20 feet, and a 1,200 square foot minimum net lot area per dwelling unit, are unique only to this application and are not found in the schedule of area yard and height regulations for residential uses located in the ULDC. For affordable housing, the applicant is proposing to have up to 6 dwellings, or approximately 7% of the total proposed units, dedicated for workforce housing, moderate income housing, or age-restricted housing. For parking, the applicant proposes having at least 3 spaces per unit, which comply with the parking requirements found in the ULDC. These spaces will be provided through a combination of garage spaces, driveway spaces, and off-street parking lots. The applicant will also be required to provide 1 level 2 EV charging outlet per dwelling unit. For green space, the applicant is proposing 2 areas on the property as dedicated open space for a total of approximately 23,800 square feet. Staff recommends that the City of Laurel Planning Commission recommend approval to the City of Laurel Board of Appeals for special exception application number 950 with the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall obtain forest conservation approval from the Planning Commission. 2, the applicant shall obtain preliminary subdivision approval from the Planning Commission. 3, the applicant shall obtain final site and landscape approval from the Planning Commission. 4, the applicant shall obtain final record plat approval from the Planning Commission. 5, the applicant shall comply with all conditions of the approved preliminary site plan. And 6, the applicant shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations for the protection of the use of the property. This concludes the reading of the staff report. I am available for any questions, and the applicant will speak further about the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if there are questions for staff first. Mr. Kish,
I have no,
Mr. Welford,
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Wilson.
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. I just have one, and for staff. The mention that this is basically a unique property solely unto itself, this will not go to the mayor and city council. It just goes to Board of Appeals. Emily, when you were talking about the lot sizes and things like that, you said they did not have to meet our current requirements. If our current requirements had been applied to it, what would the total number of townhouses have been allowed? Do you have that number?
I do not have that number. I do know that for the RT zone, which is our residential townhouse zone, the lot widths are a little bit larger than the proposed, the minimum lot widths that the applicant has proposed. So the number might be a little bit less than what's proposed.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. I have 2 people signed up. I believe Mr. McNulty, are you going to start? And if so, if you would please state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, I will start. My name is Kevin McNulty, Resource Enterprises Incorporated, located on 612 Main Street, Laurel, Maryland. We are the developer and manager of this project. The actual landowner is Greater Laurel Professional Park, LLLP. And as background, Resource Enterprises and formerly Resource Realty has always been the developer of this property. And this goes back with the formation of our company back in the 70s, also on Main Street. This property has always been contiguous with, Van Dusen Road and Laurel Park Drive prior to Laurel Park Drive turning into, I can't remember the name as it goes into the villages of Wellington. But anyway, the first building was built in 1979, which is still there today, our 2-story medical office building, followed by shopping centers, other offices. We have 2 early education daycare centers, and some other uses. Was potential to grow a little bit more up on Van Dusen Road. As stated, we are the only village activity center in the city of Laurel. And just recently we were surprised and happy that the new text amendment allowed for townhouses for part of our property by special exception, and that's why we're here tonight. We agree with the staff's recommendations and their listed conditions for this property. And what I can tell you on this call also is our planner, Courtney Gallagher of Moritz Ritchie Associates, which is also a local planner. Matter of fact, they are in the center of the plan you're looking at right now, in the first of our plan 3 office buildings, which at this point we're looking to change. We're looking to not move forward with the other 2 flex office buildings, and in lieu of advantage of the special exception residential. Back up residential now at the back of our property.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, there was just silence. If there's any questions for me, otherwise, concept and technical questions would be best to Courtney because it's her project. It does.
Courtney, did you want to speak or did you just want to answer questions?
I'd like to say a couple of items, if I may.
You definitely welcome. And if you would please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Courtney Gallagher. I work for Morris and Ritchie Associates, located at 14280 Park Center Drive, Laurel, Maryland. I'm a professional landscape architect and associate with Morris and Ritchie Associates. I'd first like to thank Ms. Klein-Gibson for her presentation, and I'd like to state that we concur with the information included in her staff report. I'll first address the question you posed, Madam Chairwoman, regarding the density. The other zones within the city of Laurel that permit townhouses recommend a density of 10 units or allow a density of 10 units per acre. We are within that requirement at 82 units and 8.2 acres for the size of the site. So we are not seeking increased density with the smaller unit size. The only other item that I would like to add for the Commission's consideration that speaks to the compatibility of the proposed development with the surrounding community. As one of the few remaining undeveloped sites within the Greater Laurel Professional Park, we feel that the development of townhomes on this property rounds out the professional park. As has already been stated, the entirety of the professional park is zoned CVAC, which is a village activity center, and the inclusion of a residential use within the professional park helps strengthen the village aspect of the zone. The townhouse use is a complementary use to the other existing uses within the professional park. As Kevin noted, the general office buildings, medical office buildings, and institutional uses. And the townhomes further support the existing daycare centers that exist within the professional park, as well as the retail center that is shown along Van Dusen there that has the opportunity for future expansion to both the north and the south. Access into the development will come through the Greater Laurel Professional Park via Laurel Park Drive and Park Center Drive to a single access point near the terminus of Park Center Drive, that cul-de-sac there you see on your screen. Lastly, the townhouse development has been designed so that only rear and side yards are adjacent to the Wellington subdivision to the north and the east, which is comprised mainly of single-family detached units. The enlarged buffers have been held for screening along these perimeters and stormwater management as well. We feel that these characteristics of the development further warrant approval for the proposed development, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all tonight and present this project. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple questions, but let me go to commissioners first. Mr. Wilson?
No, I don't see any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Welford?
Just one question out of curiosity. The level 2 EV charging outlet per dwelling, is that something that is from standard with every townhouse, or is that something that a person could delete from their townhouse? Or is that just mandatory that everyone has one?
I can actually answer that, Mr. Welford. Actually, per the last legislation we passed, it actually is mandatory. And essentially what that rounds out to is really a standard plug in a garage will actually charge an EV station. So it's not a full formed station that's within there.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And Mr. Kish? Mr. Kish, you're on mute. Did you have any questions?
No, I have none. I think everything was really explained to me, what I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple, the process as it was explained, tonight's vote is simply a special exception for the application for Board of Appeals. We will be seeing you multiple times through this project. Couple of things that we have had sometimes recently with new developments are the size of the streets, whether the city equipment can get in and things like that, or whether you will be maintaining your own trash pickup and things like that. Robert, would that come at a future one where that decision is made in terms of the size of the streets?
That'll come at a future time, and we'll recommend streets that do fit our trash trucks. What we find on developments is, you know, it may be HOA now, but in time, if we ever have to take over, we want to be able to take over right away if we can with our trucks.
Oh, I agree. And I would wholeheartedly, from an architecture standpoint or sizing, I would recommend that, because in terms of selling, I can tell you our DPW in the city of Laurel is number one, bar none, I would say, in the county, the state, the United States. So it's a great selling point to know that DPW, and also it's a help for fire equipment. Another question, I believe, for Emily and staff: were notices sent to those homeowners in the villages at Wellington that abut this property? Or will that be something at a future point that they will receive notification?
Thank you for the question. This is Emily Klein Gibson. Yes, notification was sent to the Homeowners Association, and we did receive a response through the contiguous letter.
Thank you. And Ms. Gallagher, you mentioned the single access point coming off of Park Center Drive. The property that's on the side that goes out towards Van Dusen, is there any ability to have an exit that would go out to Van Dusen?
So you're speaking about, there's a vacant property that's to the north of the retail center that is currently undeveloped, where there is potentially an opportunity to connect the proposed townhouse development through to Van Dusen, but that property is currently being held for the future retail opportunity. So that at this time, we're not proposing to extend a connection through to Van Dusen.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your patience for all of my questions. I have no further questions. If there are no further questions for the applicant or staff, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, this is Rick. I will propose that we approve a special exception application number 950 for 14251 and 275 Park Center Drive, as filed by the applicant, and including the staff report, recommend approval to the Board of Appeals.
I'll second that, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson and Mr. Kish. Ms. Quillen, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Kish,
Yes.
Mr. Welford,
Yes.
Chairwoman Bettman,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you back in the future. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 5, text amendment, application number 265, ordinance number 2018, an ordinance to amend the Laurel City Code and Unified Land Development Code to update the design guidelines for Historic District Commission and to create for sale affordable housing guidelines for recommendation to the mayor and city council.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commission members. Before you is text amendment 265, ordinance number 2018, to amend Laurel City Code Chapter 11, Planning and Development, Article 3, Affordable Housing Program, and Unified Land Development Code Chapter 20, Land Development and Subdivision Regulations, Article 1, Zoning, to update the design guidelines for the Historic District Commission and create a for sale affordable housing section. This is the 8th phase of the code update. The proposed change would update 15 sections of the Historic District Commission guidelines. Some of these updates include the consideration of financial hardship when reviewing applications, encouraging the installation of pervious paving or paving strips for driveways, requiring a letter from a certified arborist or Maryland licensed tree expert when removing a diseased or dying tree, requiring the replanting of a tree if one is removed from a lot unless determined by the HCC to have adequate landscaping on said lot, and allowing staff approval for certain window material and tax credits. At the HCC work session held on September 19th, 2023, all members present recommend approval of the proposed HCC guideline changes. We are also adding the first for saleable affordable housing language into the city code. Some of the requirements include a minimum of 50 single-family detached townhouse and or condominium dwelling units or residential portions of mixed-use developments that include the same type and minimum number of dwelling units. 8% of the total number of the dwelling units shall be developed and sold as affordable housing. The price of each affordable dwelling unit in the development shall not exceed 30% of the median price of each similar unit type in the development at the time of contract for any such affordable unit is entered into. The eligibility for any affordable dwelling unit shall be a household income no greater than 60% of the median income in Prince George's County, adjusted for household size as determined annually by the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. We kind of see this ordinance as evolving over time with the changing landscape of the housing market. We talked with and read different for sale ordinances around the area, and the consensus was every single one was different. So it was kind of coming up, but I think what we're going to do, this probably won't be the first time you see. We'll constantly build on it and try to perfect this over time, I believe. But this is the one that staff and the city solicitor did come up with for the time. Overall, there were 16 sections amended in this update. It is recommended that the Planning Commission recommend approval of text amendment number 265 ordinance 2018 to the mayor and city council. Thank you, and I am here for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Are there any questions for Mr. Love? Mr. Kish?
Yes, Mr. Love, could you go over what the section about the staff is allowed to approve what now? Windows?
So certain type of window material. So if someone's going to say change from wood to vinyl, that's more of a staff approval. But if they are going to change the style, then that has to go for the HDC. So that was a big thing. That was a lot of these changes were pushed by the HDC themselves. So if they're changing certain materials, yes, but if they're changing the style, no, that does have to go to the HDC. And then when they're talking tax credits, before the HDC would have to review tax credits, but actually now it comes just the staff to review and approve them. And I think a big thing also that I can mention that we changed was that if tax credits now, before if you were in violation, you were eligible not for 10% tax credit, but 5% tax credit. Now actually we're recommending that you can't get any tax credit if you are in violation, if you start ahead of time or do something in violation. So that's also something that staff will be able to take a look at. And if we'll know, I think before anybody else, if they were under violation, be able to, not allow that tax credit.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Mr. Welford?
No questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
No questions, just a point of clarification. There's been a lot of, here in the historic district where I live, there's been a lot of controversy over gravel driveways. And I see that you at least made it more clear that you can't put in new gravel driveways, but if you have an existing gravel driveway or parking pad, you can maintain it. And I think that's something that needs to be out, because there's a lot of bad info floating around the neighborhood that you can't maintain a gravel driveway. Other than that, thank you.
Now, in fact, we want you to maintain a gravel driveway. We
Right.
want you to maintain the one you have.
Right.
Thank you. There are no further questions. I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I will make a motion to recommend approval of text amendment number 265, ordinance number 2018 to the mayor and city council.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Welford and Mr. Kish. Ms. Quillen, if you will please call the roll.
Mr. Welford,
Yes,
Mr. Kish,
Yes,
Mr. Wilson,
Yes,
Chairwoman Bettman,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you. I would like to thank the staff for the excellent reports and Laurel TV for helping us share this meeting. And agenda item 6 is to adjourn. Have a good night, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.
thank you. See you all next time.
Good night.
good night.